Are the NATO and Russia preparing for a war of the century? Just have a look at what's going on. The NATO is strengthening its eastern flank, fearing that Russia might invade its member states. And to address this concern, the US-led military bloc is constructing its largest base in Europe. That's right, in Romania. With Ukraine at the north, the Black Sea to the southeast, Serbia to the southwest, Hungary to the west. Romania does not share a border with Russia, but fears of Russian aggression have reached an all-time high. The $2.7 billion project plans to expand the Romanian Air Force 57th Air Base. It is located close to the Black Sea port city of Constanta. Once finished, the new base will have a perimeter of almost 20 miles, covering around 11 square miles. It will have hangars, fuel stores, ammunition, new runways, weapon platforms, accommodation, basically everything that is needed to support the operation and the missions of NATO. It is designed to permanently host up to 10,000 NATO soldiers and their families. And for them, the base will have schools, kindergartens, shops, and a hospital. In short, it will be the size of a small city. The location is key. Romania has long been a key hub for NATO operations in the Black Sea region. Since Russia's full-scale war on Ukraine started, thousands of American troops have been sent to Romania for security and training purposes. The NATO policing operations in Romania involve a regular deployment of American combat and surveillance aircraft. So the expansion of Romania's existing base seems like the appropriate place to expand operations for the NATO. And reports say that the new base's basic infrastructure work, including access roads and the power grid, has started. New runways will be built to support different types of military aircraft. The US-led military bloc had started building its network of enhanced forward presence multinational battle groups in the Baltic region after Russia annexed Crimea from Ukraine in the year 2014. But when the Ukraine war started in February 2022, the NATO reinforced the missions, creating 4 additional battle groups in Bulgaria, Hungary, Romania, and Slovakia. The Romanian battle group is led by France, with Belgium, Luxembourg, North Macedonia, Poland, Portugal, and the United States contributing forces. Romania has established itself as an anchor of NATO's and the European Union's eastern flank. Now, Bucharest is seeking closer cooperation with its NATO allies, especially the US. And this is especially because the Black Sea has become an area of confrontation between Ukraine and Russia, as well as between West and Russia. And this is why Romania wants to strengthen its collaboration with its allies. Romania has become a crucial location for the US and NATO to improve their operational capabilities in the region. In fact, the US Air Force operates fighter aircraft and drones from 2 bases in Romania, Base 71 and Base 75. And these bases provide surveillance close to the country's border with Ukraine and the Black Sea. Recently, Romania also opened the European F-16 Training Center to train pilots from Romania, Ukraine, and other nations to fly the coveted American fighter jet. The training center features advanced simulators, classrooms, and other training facilities, making it an essential hub for NATO pilot training. According to Romanian military and political analysts, the new NATO base would be the most critical and permanent NATO military structure in the immediate vicinity of the Ukraine war. With the Ukraine war showing no signs of abating, the base will help maintain the NATO's presence in the Black Sea region. And overall, Romania's strategic location, making it a vital member for the US-led bloc in the region. But it's not just Romania. The NATO plans to boost its military partnership with Ukraine by creating a joint training center in Poland. The center's primary purpose is to help Ukraine share its experiences and insights from its conflict with Russia. And at the same time, it will provide and offer a way for Ukrainian forces to train and learn alongside their allied partners. In short, the training center seeks to promote cooperation between Ukraine and the NATO forces. Now, Russia's invasion of Ukraine was launched in part due to Russian President Vladimir Putin's concerns, remember, about the expansion of the strategic alliance. But NATO has expanded regardless, with Finland joining last year and neighbor Sweden likely to follow suit. The Kremlin calls the NATO's actions provocation. They say it does not promote security on the continent. On the contrary, they increase tensions. Now, Russia may not be wrong in saying that tensions along Russia's border with NATO nations have in fact risen amid massive training exercises along the border. It's not just the training. NATO's increased focus on defense, including Poland and the Baltic states, have made matters worse between Russia and the West. NATO leaders have increasingly warned that Russia will eventually attack the alliance. But Putin has dismissed them as complete nonsense. What the Russian leader has also warned the West about is a potential World War III. We told you about this yesterday. That is, if NATO and Russia go to war. Still, neither side is taking proactive steps in scaling down the tensions. Israel has taken control of the Al-Shifa hospital in Gaza. It claims to have killed 20 Hamas militants, including a senior leader. In fact, yesterday, in the early morning hours, Israel started pounding the hospital compound. The same compound where thousands of Palestinians have been seeking refuge, living in makeshift tents. But Israeli officials claim that the hospital was being used for more than treating and sheltering the civilians, that senior Hamas fighters were using it as their base to command the attacks. Listen to this for yourself.
The
Hamas terror organization continues to systematically operate from within hospitals and civilian infrastructures. It abuses civilians and patients as human shields. Hamas tried to re-establish its base in the hospital and use it as a shelter for terrorists on the run. We will not allow this and will attack and continue to attack any place Hamas tries to re-establish its grip.
So Israel targeted the hospital, launching precision airstrikes. Its special forces were supported by infantry and tanks. Soon a fire broke out at the entrance of the complex. Many displaced women and children in the hospital suffocated to death. People have been trapped inside the hospital buildings. The Israeli Defense Forces detained at least 80 people. But the Israeli spokesperson is putting the figure at 200. Listen to this.
During the operation, we apprehended more than 200 terrorist suspects that are now being questioned. We eliminated more than 20 terrorists inside the hospital compound.
Israel has also released aerial and ground footage, claiming that weapons were fired at the IDF from inside the hospital compound. The clip shows soldiers in the hospital compound engaged in gunfights. Have a look. There is chaos and destruction in the hospital grounds. After seizing control of the strategically located hospital, the Israeli forces have told thousands living nearby to evacuate the region. They dropped leaflets and used social media to tell the civilians to leave their homes immediately and travel along Gaza's coastal road to Al-Mawasi. This is about 30 kilometers south from Gaza City. Israel calls it the humanitarian island. But how will the Gazans leave? That too at such a short notice. There is very limited transportation. Many residents of Gaza City, particularly children and elderly, are weak after months without adequate food. How many would be able to comply with the Israeli instructions is the question. Israel raided the hospital in November as well, and now it's back again. What does it mean? That the IDF was not able to eradicate Hamas from the grounds the first time around? Is that what happened? Since February, the IDF has returned to fight in territories that it supposedly cleared of Hamas militants last year, and now comes the hospital raid, highlighting Israel's weak grip in these areas, perhaps. There were doubts whether the hospital was being used by Hamas as a covert command center, but none over the strength of Israel's control when its soldiers moved in. 3 months later, the raid is kind of an admission that this control might have slipped. Hamas is operating in parts of northern Gaza that were cleared by Israeli forces a long time ago. Will this keep happening is the question. Is Israel looking at a forever war in Gaza? What makes me ask that? Firstly, Hamas has survived for far longer than expected. Even after sustaining heavy casualties, it seems it still has enough men and functional command systems to launch attacks on Israeli troops, given the circumstances are right. Secondly, Israel has demobilized troops to its northern border or the occupied West Bank. It is only launching targeted strikes and raids in Gaza instead of massed confrontations. This means there are only a few troops permanently on the ground in northern Gaza, giving Hamas enough time and opportunities to regroup and re-establish. Lastly, Israel still does not have any realistic plans for governing Gaza after the war. Prime Minister Netanyahu is focused on attacking Rafah. For those who might not be aware, Rafah is the southernmost town in the Gaza Strip. It houses more than 1 million displaced civilians. This has raised concerns globally, but what's the point? The fire is not fully extinguished in any part of Gaza. Hamas fighters are lurking in the territories that were supposed to be cleared by Israel. Why is Israel going further south then? Will this continue to happen on loop? Are you a working individual? How many days in a week do you work? Sounds like a silly question, you would think. Well, what if that could change? How about a 4-day work week? Does that sound like a dream? Well, it has been in the news for a while now, and now France is in the news for a new trial scheme as far as 4-day work weeks are concerned. What exactly is this about? What is the plan? What was the trigger? Let's tell you all that you need to know. Now, this is a trial scheme for divorced parents. Basically, the country is testing a 4-day working week for divorced parents who have shared custody of their children. And the idea is to have more flexible working arrangements for them. As of now, the trial will start with civil servants, but could be expanded to cover all those who are working and share custody of their children. Divorced parents will be able to have a 4-day working week when they are taking care of the children. When is the trial going to start, you ask? In September this year. And starting that month, civil servants in some ministries who are in alternating residence arrangements will be working 4 days in a week. Like I said, this will be the weeks when the children are staying with them. What is not known as of now is whether this means that the total working hours will go down. Basically, would they be making up in the weeks that the children are not with them, so that the monthly average ends up staying the same? And by the way, it is expected that Wednesday would be the day that would be preferred for the off day. And that's because that's the day when most middle schools and also primary schools don't hold classes in the afternoons. So that's when parents would prefer to be off, perhaps, so that they can be home and take care of the children. Gabriel Attal, the country's current prime minister, was the country's budget minister 2 years ago. And interestingly, that's when he had introduced this in the finance ministry. The thing is, there have been long-drawn campaigns in France aimed at encouraging shared custody. The idea basically was to bring down the number of single parents' families. But what this also meant is that the children have to be basically moving between the homes of the two parents. And as far as this trial scheme and the idea of a 4-day work week for divorced parents goes, there are also concerns regarding how this would affect or be handled by smaller businesses, for example. There is also the possibility of this being looked at as a form of discrimination. The aim overall, though, is to improve the quality of working life in France and give divorced parents an extra day off to take care of their children. What do you think about the move? Should it be given a shot in other parts of the world as well? Write to us and let us know your thoughts.